Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings, everyone. I'm Adam Malachi Israel, and I'm reporting to you from the land of Israel. This situation and this topic is about the Mandela effect that is really real, and John F.K. and the assassination, which I believe all of this really links to this effect happening and taking place because of this situation with John F. Kennedy. So, with that being said, for those who remember, in the real reality, there was only four people in the car when John F. Kennedy was killed, and there was never six people in the car, such as a middle row seat with Governor Connally and his wife Nellie in the car. So, with all of the breadcrumbs that I was able to find, I realized that when I looked into Governor Connally, because I know he was never in the car, I was able to find a testimony of him giving his detailed account of what happened with him being in the car. And allegedly now he's been shot as well from one of the bullets that hit Kennedy, such as him being shot in the shoulder, in the right shoulder, it coming out of his right chest, going through his rib, hitting his right wrist, and then going into his leg. So all of this happened from one bullet hitting Kennedy and then end up hitting Governor Connally. So what I want to show you is something that's going to be very hard to believe. It's going to be hard to digest, to understanding that I'm revealing to you that not only was Governor Connally not in the car, but when you listen to this testimony that I'm about to show you, you'll see that he has been forced to participate in this wicked reality that we're living in, and he had no choice but to comply. But with complying, he left breadcrumbs of his testimony, giving you an eluded understanding that he was given like a code. He's showing you in code that he know that he wasn't going to be in the future, and he know he wasn't going to be in this event in real life, but in the future we wouldn't see this as if he was in the car. And he knows that this is not real reality, and that this is going to be something that only the real wise ones can open their eyes and see and figure out how to do something about this and expose the system. So with that being said, this is an archival recording, Texas recording of Governor Connally speaking and giving a testimony. And as he gives this testimony, I'm going to point out detailed points of how to look at his body language, pay attention to what he's saying, and how he's alluding to how this is basically a recreated living in the past situation.
Do you still feel any stiffness in your right wrist, any permanent disability?
And also, you can very faintly hear the person that's asking him questions. So without being able to really hear the questions, just hear the answers, and then you can go into this archive as well, this Governor Connally archive as well, and you'll be able to find the whole transcript for this.
I wouldn't call it a permanent disability, although I certainly have a stiffness in the right wrist. Turn the wrist over, and obviously reminded of it every day, every time I eat a meal, because.
So with the question he was just asked, he was asked if he have any permanent damage to his right wrist because the bullet also hit his wrist, like I said. So the question that was asked right now was, does he feel any stiffness or any permanent damage in his right wrist? And so his response was, going back to it again, that he don't feel any permanent damage. He feel a little stiffness, and every time he eat a meal or something like this is what disturbs him. So he's that in his right wrist that he's supposed to be shot in, something, he's going to say that he can't really eat it as you normally can. He's going to move his right wrist normally as you normally can, to show you that's the first sign that he's okay first. So let me go back.
Do you still feel any stiffness in your right wrist, any permanent disability there?
I wouldn't call it a permanent.
What's happening here? You see, the devil want to try to stop this information from coming out. Look at this. Ain't nothing wrong in this. Just all of a sudden it's freezing. Wow. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. I don't want to stop this live just for the sake of this going malfunction out of nowhere. So let's just refresh. See what we get.
Further, do you still feel any stiffness in your right wrist, any permanent disability there?
I wouldn't call it a permanent disability, although I certainly have a stiffness in the right wrist. I can't turn the wrist over, and obviously reminded of it every day, every time I eat a meal, because I can't rotate the wrist enough to properly get a fork to my mouth as you normally can.
Moving his right wrist, he said he can't probably get a fork up to his mouth like you normally can. Showing you his right wrist is okay. There's no bullet wound there, and he's supposed to have been shot here in this whole situation. Pay attention to the details of this. Governor Connally is showing us that this is a time travel situation, believe it or not.
Can you describe for us a sequence of events, say, from the time the procession began up to point of these? What sort of date it was?
Also look into his, pay attention to his body language and see how when the shadows go in front of him, how he looks more uncomfortable and more like he's trying to keep his poise as this is whatever is in front of him and whoever's around him. He's trying to keep his poise and keep a straight face at the same time while he's delivering this message.
Well, we had started the day, as you know, in Fort Worth. We had arrived there late the night of the 21st in a drizzling rain. We woke up the next morning of the 22nd, with the rain continuing. A temporary platform had been erected in the parking lot opposite the Texas Hotel. The president
said a temporary parking lot had been erected outside of the Texas Hotel in the parking lot. A temporary stage.
Vice President.
He did like this to it, so pay attention to this temporary platform. What is the point of this?
And I and others had gone over to make an appearance on this temporary parking lot. And from there, we went back into the hotel for the breakfast. The warmth and enthusiasm of the crowd was, I thought, immense and spontaneous, both at the appearance on the parking lot and certainly the breakfast where there was an overflow crowd.
So he said that the parking lot and the breakfast was immense and spontaneous, meaning that it was not expected. It was something that just kind of like happened.
All went off extremely well. I thought President Kennedy was in high good humor. Miss Kennedy came in and joined us at breakfast along with Mrs. Johnson, and everything proceeded on schedule. We left.
He said Miss Kennedy and Miss Johnson came in after the fact and met with them. He never mentioned his wife at all in this instance. Pay attention to that. Who is Nellie?
To go to Dallas, and about the time we arrived in Dallas, the sun broke clear. It looked like a perfectly wonderful day. The procession from the Dallas airport downtown was in keeping with all the others that we'd had in Texas. Very nice, and the crowds were huge, warm, and enthusiastic. The crowds at the airport were large. As we left the airport, headed toward town, out through the residential area, of course, the crowds were not as immense as they were in the downtown area. As we approached the downtown area of Dallas, the crowds were really tremendous in size and warmth for the president and the first lady. I was outpouring of a spontaneous nature on the part of the throngs that just literally jammed the streets.
Listen how he said the spontaneous nature of the throngs and the spontaneous nature of what was going on in the streets. He's using these words very, very exact and on purpose, and was completely off and strange. Tremendously warm words he's using continuously to kind of like emphasize.
We had just gone to the downtown area and we're turning to go on the freeway, the Stemmons Freeway, going to the luncheon that had been planned. We were all extremely exuberant about it, very, very well pleased in the light of everything that had happened. This was the president's first visit to Texas, and we were not only anticipating a great luncheon, but looking forward to a tremendous dinner in Austin the night of the 22nd, which had been very carefully planned. People from all over Texas were already gathering in large groups in Austin.
So notice how we kept on saying how there was a luncheon that's supposed to take place in Austin that was already carefully planned. And it was already put together where people all around Texas was already gathering in Austin, the capital of Texas, to be prepared for the arrival of the president. Never was this supposed to even be a situation where this spontaneous crowd of people all were ready to see the president in Dallas. This is what he's pointing out to you. And this is the first time the president arrived in Texas. It was the last time he arrived in Texas. So this was really a nightmare. And this is actually what Nightmare on Elm Street is really symbolizing. Nightmare on Elm Street, Kennedy's assassination.
As we turned to go down to enter the freeway, the first inkling that I had that anything was amiss, I heard a shot, what I thought was a shot. Others said a sound, but I thought it was a shot.
He said he thought it was a shot here. Others said it was a sound. It don't matter what other people think if you in the car and you the one who gets shot with the president. He said other people said it was a sound. Everybody know it was a shot because clearly people got shot and died, right? So he said other people said it was a sound. I thought it was a shot. How you think it was a shot if it was a shot actually and you got shot? Pay attention to that.
Heard too many rifle shots in my life not to be able to identify one, and no thought crossed my mind except that it was a rifle shot. I immediately became concerned and tried sitting on the jump seat immediately in front of the president.
Said he immediately became concerned. He had enough time to be concerned and try to check on the president from the first shot that went off. When these shots went off rampantly, boom, boom, boom. It didn't take enough time for you to just take the time from the first shot to be concerned about the president and then to look over to your right shoulder. What is he about to say?
In his limousine, I started to turn to my right to see if everything was all right with him. I never completed my return, although I did not see him out of the corner of my eye, and I was turning to my left to look back over my left shoulder.
So he's in the car. He's in front of the president. The president's behind him. This is the door. This is the outside of the car right here. Shot goes off. He hears the first shot. He turns to the right to check on the president. If you're in a car, anybody that's sitting in the car and people are in the back seat, it's made for you to look to your left automatically to look who's in the back seat. Automatically, you would never look inside of a car to your right to check on anyone that's in the back seat of the car. So this is him showing you that none of this makes sense. So he said, I turned to my right to try to check on the president, and I didn't make a complete turn all the way, and I didn't see him out the corner of my eye. So I stopped because I realized, who gonna turn this way? So he said, I then turned to my left. And as he's turning to his left, this is when he supposedly had got shot from the back and these bullets happened. So listen to how he continued.
When I felt a tremendous impact, as if someone had hit me in the back with a closed fist. It was not a sharp pain. It was not a sensation of being hit. I had no way to gauge that experience, of course.
He got no way to gauge the experience of being hit by a bullet. So he says that when the impact of him getting shot felt like he was being punched. He felt like he was being punched. not, and it was not to where that it was an impact that he felt like he was being shot by a bullet, but this bullet supposed to have went through his back, came out of his chest, hit him in the wrist, and landed in his leg. So listen to what he's telling you, his reaction to feeling like he was shot. He never mentions his wrist, his chest, holding his chest or his leg at all in the midst of this one bullet that's supposed to hit him. He just feel like he was punched in the back. He's showing you he's being coerced and forced to do this.
When I felt a tremendous impact, as if someone had hit me in the back with a closed fist. It was not a sharp pain. It was not a sensation of being hit by a bullet. I had no way to gauge that experience, of course, but I merely felt as if someone had hit me a very hard blow with a closed fist, knocking me forward. The first time I really was conscious.
He felt like he was hit really hard with a closed fist and it knocked him forward. And the motion that he's doing, knocking him forward, was the same motion that Kennedy did when he got shot in the neck in the original footage. So when Kennedy was shot in the neck, he immediately went forward just like that. So if he went forward like that from getting shot in the neck, why would Governor Connally get shot in the shoulder and do the exact same motion Kennedy did going forward like this? So now you got two people with the same bullet doing the exact same motion going forward. This is what he's telling you. That won't make sense when you see everything. He's doing it on purpose.
That I had been hit was when I bent over as a result of the impact of the bullet. I could see blood all over my clothing. I knew then, of course, that I had been hit.
Another thing, I've been shot. I've been shot a few times all at the same time on one. When bullets don't just splash out and make your clothes start bleeding, and you don't get hit with a bullet, especially with a suit on, and the bullet go through you and it splashes out where you're going to see blood all over your clothes. That's not going to happen. It's going to be internal, or it's going to leak out from that point from it happened. And it's going to, or any splash is going to get caught from the suit that he was actually wearing. And so therefore nothing will be in front of him. So he's letting you know, anybody who's been shot or have the experience of shooting, then you would know the reaction would be not like this. This is another clue.
And I said to Nellie, my God, they're going to kill us both.
It's the first time he mentioned his wife out of the whole time since he started. First time he mentioned her is when he getting shot, and he's saying, Nellie, they're going to kill us both.
She immediately reached over and grabbed me, and I suppose as a result of my own crumpling and her putting her arm around me and pulling me down into my head down into her lap, and then she bent over me and very quietly talked to me, saying, be still, you're going to be all right.
So his wife said, be still, you're going to be all right, putting his head on her lap, and she's covering him up. This is what he's saying that his wife doing in the midst of all this, when Miss Kennedy is screaming and climbing out the back of the car from her husband being shot. This lady on the other end is quiet, telling her husband to be still, everything gonna be all right, and shielding him like she's the man in the situation. What's going on here? He's showing you signs that's in real reality, something like that would never happen.
I was conscious then of hearing a third shot. I say a third shot. I was not conscious really of hearing the second shot, the bullet that hit me.
He wasn't conscious of hearing the second shot that hit him. He heard the first shot, which made him turn around and try to look for the president. He didn't even hear the second shot that hit the president and hit him. But then he's going to say, but I heard the third shot. He's playing on purpose.
Clearly heard the third one. They were coming in very rapid fire order. And I knew as a result of the third shot that someone certainly, and I assume the president had been hit a fatal.
After the third shot, someone, of course, he assumed someone, maybe the president, had been hit with a fatal blow. 3 shots, the first shot, it makes you look around and see what's going on. Second shot, you get hit, you don't even hear the shot. Third shot, you automatically assume the president has been killed with a fatal blow. You assume somebody been hit, and maybe it's the president who been killed with a fatal blow. This is how he's giving you the events of what happened with him being in the car. Line all this up, and you can see that he's doing this on purpose to show you that this could never make sense in real reality, because in real reality, he was never in the car.
The blow, because I could see the evidence of it all over my clothing and all over the car. I was conscious up to that.
He can see the evidence of Kennedy being shot, all the evidence of it all over his clothes and all over the car. So not only do he see his blood and realize that he shot his clothes, now he sees Kennedy blood all over his clothes. It's just blood just splashed everywhere. It's what they're trying to make you imagine. This is not a real reality.
Point with my eyes open, and shortly thereafter, as the car broke out of the procession and began to speed away, I lost consciousness and was unconscious until we came to a halt in front of the hospital itself.
So after all of that, the car speeds off, and he instantly loses consciousness as the car speeds off, and then he don't regain consciousness again until they get in front of the hospital. And then watch how he tells you how he regains consciousness when they get in front of the hospital. It's going to be because the car stops, and maybe because the driver stops the car abruptly. This is what wake him back up from being unconscious.
Yes, I regained consciousness immediately upon arriving at the hospital. I think it was probably the braking action of the car. We obviously had been traveling at a tremendous rate of speed, and when they stopped, the action of stopping the car made me regain consciousness. And it's a rather peculiar thing. I think that enters your mind at moments of crises like this. It's strange, I suppose, what you think of.
So it's a rather peculiar thing. It enters your mind, and crisis situations like this is strange of what you think of. Mind games. Mind games. He's saying what's going on right now that they want to play on the people. It's a peculiar thing. So watch how he about to give you a story in the script about how it's supposed to really be in a scenario with if he was in the car with the president.
I had, of course, been Secretary of the Navy. I knew that as a result of that experience and my experience during the war that junior officers, for instance, are always first in a car or a boat and always last out. The senior.
He said junior officers are always first in the car and last out of a car or a boat. So understand that he's saying out of a car or a boat, he's giving you a scenario because he said he was the Secretary of the Navy. So he's saying that if it was in the position of authority, the junior officer, which will be the governor, a junior officer to the senior officer, which is the president, the junior officer will be the first in the car and the last out of the car in any situation of crisis, especially a crisis. Then the president will be the last in the car and the first out of the car, especially in a situation where there's an assassination or assassination tip. He will be the first priority to get out of the car first before the junior president, which would be the junior officer, which would be Governor Connally in this instance, being in the car. So watch how he says that to show you that that doesn't happen, because in reality, he was the one who got put out the car first.
Officer is always the last in and the first out, whether it's a car or a plane or a boat or whatever. The senior officer always walks on the right, the junior officers to the left. So as I regained consciousness, the only thought that went through my mind was that every effort would be made to immediately get the president out of the car.
See that?
And I was sitting in front of him on the jump seat by the door, and I knew it would be difficult, if not impossible, to get him out of the car without me getting out. So
it'd be difficult to get him out of the car. It would be difficult to get the president out the car without getting him out the car. He ran the scenario past us to understand that his first mind, he said, when he regained consciousness, was that the president should be focused on getting out the car first and not him. But we're going to see what reality ended up taking place with that. So this is what he's saying. He's gonna say, like, I tried to get out the car and nobody tried to help him get out the car. His wife didn't know why he was trying to get out the car. And this whole little scenario that plays out with them getting out the car in front of the hospital is not going to make sense at all. So he's showing you that that's another code to show you that none of this is supposed to make sense.
Without saying anything, but motivated by my every effort would be made to immediately get the president out of the car. And I was sitting in front of him on the jump seat by the door, and I knew it would be difficult, if not impossible, to get him out of the car without me getting out. So, without saying anything, but motivated by my thoughts, I tried to raise myself up and get out of the car without any help, so that they could get to the president. I didn't have the strength to do it. No one knew why I was doing it. Nellie later said she wondered what I was trying to do when I forcefully lifted my head up and tried to rise out of the seat. And of course, when I did so, I crumpled again. Someone later then, I heard the talk that was going on around the car. I was conscious during this time. Someone then bodily just lifted me out of the car. And
he heard talk going on around the car and someone bodily lifted him up out of the car. Does this sound like the chain of events of someone who's supposed to be rushing and getting the president out the car? Once the car pulls up to the hospital and they're in a cut off car, they're supposed to snatch people supposed to be already ready there to snatch the president out of the car. So notice how he shows you how much time from the time they arrived in front of the so-called hospital that it took for them to even car, much less getting Kennedy out of the car. It's talking on the car and everything, and he's saying then he gets bodily put up out of the car.
And of course, then they took the president out.
Then they took the president out. So this goes back to the junior officer, senior officer scenario. After all that took place, him being pulled out then Kennedy was pulled out the car, and Kennedy is the senior officer. This is code.
They put me on a stretcher and wheeled me into the hospital. I didn't know exactly where I was, except I knew it was a hospital because I could see the orderlies, the nurses, and hear the talk. And this was the first time that I began to feel any pain. And at this point, the pain became excruciating. It was.
He began to feel excruciating pain upon the arrival going to this hospital where he thought was a hospital, because when he got there, it looked like it was people that was doctors and nurses and stuff like this. He couldn't tell for sure if it was a hospital, but he can assume it is. And this is when he started to feel excruciating pain. It's another hint in the line.
It was a very, very intense pain, which I felt at this time.
Not from the gunshot wounds.
Governor, last year you told us that the assassination is still something I think about quite often. And 2 months ago, Chicago said it's almost a nightmare. Do you think about it now less than you did during the first year?
No, I don't think about it any less. I think about it constantly. As I told you a moment ago, I think about it almost every day. I think about it almost every time I sit down to a meal and pick up a fork or a spoon. I think the intensity of the feeling has perhaps diminished somewhat because memory fortunately dulls the sharpness of a great tragedy, which this
memory dulls the sharpness of a great tragedy. Memory, to remember these events, dulls the events of a tragedy such as this, what he's trying to tell you. It's going to be a memory change in the future. Time travel. He already knew this was happening.
And I try not to consciously think about it, although it's obvious that every time I take a shower or go swimming, I think about it because I see the scars from the operation.
Every time you take a shower or go swimming, common things that he can remember to do that you don't remember in your life. He's giving you hints of keeping your memory. You understand?
So it's not something that I'm going to ever escape from. It's something that I nevertheless try to relegate to proper perspective. And in that context, let me say that I have reluctantly agreed to talk to you gentlemen today because I personally feel, and Nellie feels, I think that this is no longer a subject that we should discuss in detail in public, and I have tried to refrain from doing so as much as I possibly could. It's no longer a matter of news. It's no longer a matter of front page information.
This is not no longer a matter of news, front page information. Kennedy being shot. This is no longer news and front page information. Why? Because something more deeper and sinister has currently taken place as he's speaking on this, and he knows that no, this ain't something that we can publicize like this is real. Something has changed.
I don't personally like to relive the tragedy.
He don't personally like to relive the tragedy. They went to the past to make them relive this event so they can change events for the cover up. This is completely out of this world. I hope all those who have eyes to see can see and hear.
It is something that, in my judgment, should be relegated to the pages of history, a dark and tragic page of history. But nevertheless, it is now a matter of history.
It should be left to the pages of history, a dark, tragic matter. It should be left alone, left into history, not to be touched again. Nevertheless, him having this conversation right now, it is now a matter of history, what he's doing, because in history, he didn't have to speak because he was never in the car. He never got shot. Now, in this reality that we live in, he's in the car. He got shot. So he had to give us this testimony that is now a part of history.
One that I think proves the strength and the resiliency of this country, of its people, of its form of government. That we suffered great shock, great crisis, great tragedy, and yet we rebounded immediately and not in any sense have we permitted what has to be one of the great national tragedies to warp us or to make us lose a perspective of our mission.
To warp us or to make us lose perspective of our mission. He's saying that this is a warp situation that's happening right now, and it's trying to make people lose their perspective of what actually took place in the past. Change in history, change in time. He's in front of these beings, and whatever's happening in front of him, what he's being questioned, he's letting us know in code that this is being coerced. Something has went to the past, is in front of him, and make him reenact events that never was supposed to take place. It's unbelievable.
As individuals or as a nation. So I say to you that I have granted this interview today because I think perhaps I should, not because I want to, but I hope that the outcome of the interview will be in perspective, that we're discussing not a newsworthy item as such, but rather we're remembering in perspective.
Remembering in perspective. Remember in perspective all your thoughts and exactly the details of how you remember Kennedy being in the car, and it was only 4 people in the car, not 6. Never Governor Connally was in the car with Kennedy. Remember in perspective.
A terrible tragedy that befell this nation.
Was this something that you thought about when you were going through your own deliberations about running for the 3rd term, and the fact that you'd be exposed once more to the public for 2 years?
Oh, beyond any question, it's something that I thought about a very great deal. I thought about it not from the standpoint of fear of being exposed to the public, but I thought about it more in the light of, I think of how much time one has to do the things that he wants to do.
How much time one has to do the things he wants to do. This is when he started to allude to the time traveling. how much time one has to figure out how to do something of this magnitude. Watch it.
I thought about it in terms of my own life, my family, my wife and children, of what I owed to them. I thought about it in terms of where my greatest duty and obligation were. I thought about it in terms that none of us are permitted to know how much time we're going to have.
None of us are permitted to know how much time we're going to have. You're not supposed to know how much time you're going to have, right? Watch this.
If I could by some miracle know that I had another 20, 25 years to enjoy.
If he can by some miracle know that he had another 20, 25 years to live, basically, and to enjoy life on earth, he would be happy to he's gonna say, I'll be happy to know that, right? Well, in the midst of this interview that took place in 1964, he died within 30 years. He died 30 years later. Exactly. From 1963 to 1993, he died 30 years. So they had to tell him how much time he was going to live from this point. Amazing. So this is another hint, because when you realize when he died, you'll realize that it's within that. He don't say 20, he don't say the exact amount of time. He says 2025, and all you got to do is say 25, 30 years. That's the next step over, and he's pretty much accurate on how much time left he had on earth. He could have been way shorter than that. He could have died in 5 years, anything, but he died within 30 years.
On this earth, there would have been no question in my mind but what I would have immediately have announced. Nevertheless, I have had proven to me in a rather forceful manner that time is fleeting, that
He had proven to him in a rather forceful manner that time is fleeting.
you can never be sure at what moment uh, you may be called. And knowing that,
Maybe called.
it gave me pause for concern about seeking another term as governor, because there are many things that I want to do. I think this conscious thought will always be with me. That
This conscious thought will always be with me. I'm not gonna remember. I'm not gonna forget. You can change time, but this conscious thought, my memory is gonna stay intact from what happened here.
many of the things that we think are important in our daily lives, many of the activities that we engage in, many of the things on which we spend time, in the perspective of life and the time that we have to live it. Uh,
In the perspective of life and the time that we have to live it. All these things he's gonna say that we think that we're doing, waking up every day and finding these things important, going to work, trying to make some money, do all this type of stuff. He's gonna say at the end, none of this is actually important when it comes down to dealing with what's really happening right now and the reality that he's seeing in front of him.
are minutia and are of an inconsequential nature.
They are a minutia and are of unconsequential nature. Inconsequential nature. Minutia is paying attention to the very small details. So that was another code he's saying, that pay attention to the details and everything in this video when it comes down to what he's doing here, when you know that he was never in the car with Kennedy.
So that whatever time I have, I want to
Whatever time he have. Listen how many times he says time. Time, time, time. This is when he's showing you time travel.
I want to spend it in what I at least think are labors of lasting import. So I most certainly did think about it at very great length before I decided to remain in public life.
Labors of lasting import. Import.
Senator, have you heard from Mrs. Kennedy since the assassination?
Yes, but we have not heard from her recently, nor have we communicated with her. Our paths in the normal course of Either our daily lives, our social lives, or our political lives do not cross.
So they asked him, have you ever said anything or talked to Miss Kennedy after the fact of all of this happening? He said, nah, yeah, but really, no, we haven't spoken at all because our lives in general don't cross in no arena of things, political, social, whatever it may have, why we would never be in the car with them in the first place. So no, I haven't spoken to her.
And we have not been in recent contact with her.
You've been out of the state off and on many times since the assassination. Of course, remember that just afterward, there was a great deal of resentment for Dallas and Texas throughout the country. Have you noticed a diminishing of this?
Yes, I think the anger that welled up in people, resulting in them striking out in every direction, including accusing the great city of Dallas for this tragic occurrence, has almost, if not entirely, diminished.
Governor, District Attorney Henry Wade in Dallas has recently suggested that he would favor commuting Jack Ruby's sentence to life in prison. Do you feel that this is what are your feelings on this?
Well, I wouldn't like to prejudge what actions I might take with respect to the commutation of the life sentence of Jack Ruby. I would like to wait until this matter has been finally settled and reaches me for a decision before I anticipate what I might do.
Have you ever commuted a sentence?
Yes, I have. I have commuted death sentence.
Have you visited any period since the assassination, the area in Dallas where the memorial was made?
And when you go look at this video for yourself, because you're going to have to go look at this again for yourself without me speaking over the video, of course. And you're going to analyze this video for yourself and pick up the points that I was pointing out to you. But also pay attention and listen to the voice of the person that's actually questioning him and hear how his voice sounds.
No, I have not visited the area. I have been by it, but I have never stopped and visited it.
They asked him, have he ever went back to the area where this all happened, Elm Street? He said, no, I never visited the area. This was a code. He said, I stopped by it, but I've never visited the area. I never was there in real reality. You understand? And don't plan on going there either. But suppose maybe one day in the future, I may be there according to the new reality is what he's going to say.
As such, I don't anticipate that I will. Maybe someday I shall, but I had great respect and admiration for President Kennedy. I served under him. I need nothing to remind me of my relations with him, and certainly I need nothing to remind me of the tragic occurrence which is responsible for the erection of the monument, and therefore I have not visited the area, nor do I anticipate that I will anytime in the near future.
You don't anticipate that he will in the near future. If it's his choice, he'll never be at this location is what he's trying to tell you. But in the future, we're going to see him at this location in the car with Kennedy. Today's time, this future.
At first, you said that you received a number of letters that in some way or other faulted you, the assassination. Have these letters continued, or have they finally been?
No, those letters have stopped. I've not received any such letters in several months now. And I never worried about them, particularly in any relation to me. I worried about them only in the sense that I think they reflected a strange attitude in the minds of so many people in the country. I was concerned from that standpoint, but not because the letters themselves accused me of being responsible for the president's tragic death, just because I was riding with him.
Just because he was right on. He said, "Well, I wasn't concerned about any letters that y'all say that I was supposed to be getting, as if I was doing something wrong, and if I had anything with to do with with President Kennedy being assassinated." He said, "It's just simply because I was in the car with him." Which was another hint because he was never in the car. So these are all codes that he throwing out.
There was a time when Mrs. Connally said that even the sound of the gun, for instance, he salute for Earhart when he was here, made her jump, made her nervous. Do the two of you still have this feeling about guns, loud noise, that sort of thing?
Yes, I think it affects us both. Uh, when Chancellor Earhart was here, and this was the first public appearance I had made, and they started sounding the 21 gun salute for him. Both of us were visibly shaken by it. Still, any sudden noise, any unexpected noise affects us. I don't know how long, of course, this would continue, but it certainly is true up to this.
You're not a hunter, are you?
Yes, I am a hunter, and I'm going to continue to hunt. And again, it doesn't bother me so long as I anticipate and know that a rifle is going to be fired or a shotgun is going to be fired. But if it's the sudden or the unexpected or unanticipated noise, whether it's a car backfiring or a gunshot or something of that type, that
So notice he said, "I'm a hunter and I'm going to always remain a hunter as long as I can recognize what a shot of a rifle and a shotgun sounds like." He said, "But if it's something that's unexpected, like the sound of a car backfiring or like a gunshot, basically from a handgun, which is really what Kennedy was shot with in original reality. He was shot with a 45 caliber handgun, as it was understood and declared in William Cooper's A Pale White Horse book, would let you know that the driver of the car was the one who turned around and killed Kennedy, and he shot him turning over like this with a 45 caliber handgun."
unnerves us still.
Uh, at the time the Warren report was released, of course, Attorney General Carr had his own report he brought out about the same period. And in there, he recommended more coordination between the federal law enforcement agencies and those of the state and local governments. Are you aware of this bearing any fruit?
Yes, I think it definitely has, so far as I know, and I'm not conversant with all of the details of the coordination and cooperation between all levels of law enforcement, but certainly I think it's resulted in a greater awareness and a greater consciousness on the part of local police, certainly the Department of Public Safety, the FBI, and the Secret Service.
He just named all of the law enforcement bodies that's working together, all the way from the top, all the way down to the bottom, that is working together to keep this cover up intact. It's the military and the law enforcement. It's the military muscle, those with the guns and the power. They're the ones who are in control of all of this, and they all the way in cahoots from the top to the bottom.
Secret Service has augmented its forces. It's changed its
Secret Service has augmented forces. It's changed.
many of its practices. It's reorganized the whole agency, I
It reorganized the whole agency.
gather from press reports.
He gathered from press reports. He is the governor, and he see that press reports, the whole Secret Service and the whole government agency has rearranged itself. Why? Because whatever's making him experience this time travel event, where he knows this is being a setup and he's being put in a reality that never existed, he say everybody that's working with this is a whole nother situation we're dealing with, period. Which is what we are, dealing with a very demonic time traveling situation.
And I don't think there's any doubt but what there is an awareness on the part of all levels of law enforcement officials that there must be now a degree of cooperation, of coordination, exchange of information to a greater degree than ever before.
So if you're not working with the system and you are in law enforcement and you are part of the right side of things, then you need to be trying to coordinate and work together secretly and silently within the system to uncover the truths as well. Band together since you share the same color and badge as those of your counterparts who is working in the evil side of the system.
Has tragic affair brought you anything closer together?
Yes, I think so. Although I must say that our family is one of those fortunate ones. We've always been extremely close. Nellie and I we have to our parents, to all our brothers and sisters, and we certainly have to our children. But again, this is a relative matter, and I think it has brought us closer together because we have, I think, consciously tried to curtail some of our activities.
Consciously try to curtail some of our activities. Another sign.
In order that we might be together more, and that we're more considerate of each other, and that we have a better appreciation and understanding of what each of us mean to each other. And to that extent, I would anticipate that no one could go through an experience of this kind without being brought closer to those whom they love and for whom they feel responsible.
And there it is. So you have your testimony from Governor Connally letting you know what happened in these chain of events that led up to his supposed being shot in the car with Kennedy. So what I want to show you now also is the latest video that he had 2 years before he died in 93, where he gives also a reenactment and the same testimony he gave back in the 1964 video that you just saw. Here is him almost 30 years later giving another take on that testimony, showing you that he's kept the same story. So when you go and look at this video that I just showed you, he kept the same story and kept the same motions and everything like this to let you know that he had to live his life being coerced and being forced to do this. And hopefully for the ones who got eyes to see, we will be able to catch up and pick up on all the breadcrumbs that he left. We'll be able to figure out how to do something about this in the future that we live in.
Well, of course, it was a horrible experience. We'd had a wonderful morning. We'd had a breakfast in Fort Worth. We'd landed in Dallas. Sun broke out about noon. We were in a parade, a motorcade down through the main part of town. The crowds were extremely enthusiastic, warm, excited, exuberant. And just after we turned off of Main Street, Nellie turned around and said to the president, "Mr. President, you can't say Dallas doesn't love you now." And he said, "No, you can't." We turned on Elm Street to go under the overpass, and I heard this sound that I thought was a rifle shot. I turned to look over my right shoulder, because that's where the sound came from, to see if I could see anything. I didn't. And I was in the process of turning to look over my left shoulder when I felt an impact, as if
You see,
someone hit me with a closed fist right in the middle of my back.
so he's still keeping up the same story of feeling like he got punched with a closed fist in his back. All the way from the past where I showed you this video, he kept this script. So all you got to do is look at this video that I just showed you, and you'll see that he left all the breadcrumbs, and he had to keep up with the same story for the rest of his life, which all the breadcrumbs is in it. He knew that by the time this come forth, people would have to realize that he was never a part of a reality that was going to present itself to us in this time.
The force was strong enough to where it knocked me over,
Same knockover position.
and I saw that I was covered with blood.
Remember that?
So frankly, I thought I had been fatally hit. My wife pulled me down in her lap. She was seated in the jump seat on my left, and I was seated on the jump seat directly in front of the president. She pulled me down into her lap, and about that time, I heard another shot. Back. And my eyes were open. I was conscious. The blue velour interior of this presidential limousine covered with blood and brain tissue. And I knew that the had been fatally hit. I knew it was the president because Ms. Kennedy said, she just screamed, "My God, I've got his brains in my hand."
He didn't say this the first time.
You know, it couldn't be a more horrible experience. Now, was there a conspiracy?
He said, was there a conspiracy about all of this? Watch this.
I don't know. I was there.
I was there.
But I was taken immediately to the hospital. I didn't know that Oswald had been apprehended and killed because I was still out from the operation, and I wasn't really conscious of what was happening until Monday morning, when I woke up enough to watch the funeral procession in Washington. So if Oswald had a conspirator working with him, he's never been identified. A lot of strange things happened surrounding the assassination that good explanation for. This gives rise to all the suspicions and
What's your personal analysis?
You see how he's doing that? He has to show you with that smirk on his face, like a lot of suspicion that happened around that situation. There's no good explanation for it, knowing that the world is not going to believe what's going to happen in the future in today's time, with us seeing him in the car with Kennedy, when in reality that never happened.
Analysis of the Warren Commission?
Basically, the Warren Commission, I think, did a good job. I think they probably overlooked some things that they could have gone into. I think the autopsy, the whole autopsy matter was badly handled.
So he pointed to the Warren Commission that dealt with the investigation on Kennedy's assassination. He said that I think they did a good job. But then he points out, I think they could have looked into some more things more better. They could have looked at the autopsy and all of this, letting you know that he was still at odds with the information that came forth, because it was clearly
I think the research on the president's body was not well done. This is a request of the Kennedy family, and I think the Warren Commission was trying to be as sympathetic toward the family as they could. But I had a great deal of confidence in the Warren Commission, and I personally knew every member on the Warren Commission, and it's inconceivable to me that man like Chief Justice Earl Warren,
Chief Justice Earl Warren,
later President Gerald Ford,
later President Gerald Ford,
Richard Russell,
Richard Russell,
John Sherman Cooper,
John Sherman Cooper,
John J. McCloy,
John J. McCloy.
distinguished New York lawyer, people like that.
He named 5 out of the 7 men. All was in the Navy. The Navy is a cover-up thing dealing with Kennedy from the beginning. It's also written in William Cooper's A Pale White Horse book that is dealing with this situation as well. So you look up Lyndon B. Johnson and all of the crew, the Navy.
Party to any kind of a cover-up. I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all.
So he said, I don't believe that they're part of any cover-up. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Hypocritical. He being funny. You understand? So, brothers and sisters, peace and blessings. Everybody that's watching. This is part 2 of the Kennedy video that I'm doing right now and showing you how everything is taking place when we can actually pay attention to Governor Connally being the person of interest because he was never in the car. So we could just easily look at his testimony and see how he lines up the events. And we can see that he left code to let us know that events doesn't make sense at all, even with using his testimony. So this is part 2. Part 3 is coming where I'm going to show you the actual testimony that he gives being in the hospital allegedly after the events took place. So that's going to be crazy because he gives messages as well in that as well. So I hope this finds for all those searchers out there seeking for truth. Understand that there is a God. You are not alone, and we will win in the end. They can't deceive us all. We have the power. So I hope you enjoy and look into this video after the fact. Actually go watch this for yourself uninterrupted with my commentary.